Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Straczynski. Thank you so much for joining us on episode number 92 of Cards Chat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is Tony Burns, Director of Poker Marketing for Seminole Hard Rock in Florida. Tony is originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana, but moved to Central Florida when he was 6 years old. After college, he had a variety of jobs and began dealing poker in a bar league for fun. In 2003, his dad took him to the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas, which just happened to be the year that a certain man named Chris Moneymaker won the main event, and the rest, as they say, is history. Today, we're going to get to know Tony better. Tony, welcome to the CardsChat Podcast.
Hey, Robbie. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you again. Really good to speak with you. Just to give a little bit of context to our audience, we do know each other for a number of years and first met, I believe, in Las Vegas in the hallways at the Rio, where you had a booth there. You used to do that. And then subsequently, we got to meet in South Florida at your previous position. We'll talk about those positions, but we haven't had too many opportunities to talk in depth and have conversations like these. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I.
Cool. All right. So let's start at the end of that little intro story. You know, your father took you to Vegas for your 21st birthday, and that's already the dream for a lot of folks out there. Were you already sort of into poker, playing poker at that point, or was this just like, oh, let's go on vacation to Vegas? For your 21st birthday, Vegas was a little bit more, I don't know, kid friendly, 20s friendly at the time as well. It was a little different than today.
Yeah, my family is originally from up north, and during those winters it gets cold up there, so a lot of card playing, hand and foot, euchre, games like that, nickel dime poker, maybe playing threes and nines wild, midnight baseball, different games. But in terms of Texas Hold'em or Omaha or any of the traditional games today, no. Maybe some stud was popular a little bit at the time, but no, not like it is today. I was more into sports, getting back into, my baseball days, but more focused on baseball than poker. It was kind of a, let's go to Las Vegas, and then kind of just tripped and fell into Binions and seeing the festivities.
That's pretty cool. And what was that feeling like for you, seeing all those people gather around? I mean, we see the old footage, it's available on Poker Go these days. You can just look and everyone looks 20 years younger, that sort of a thing. What's that experience like for a 21-year-old to be at the World Series of Poker in the Moneymaker year?
I was more looking for the blackjack tables. So I saw, there was like a wall of people that were watching what was going on. And it's like, hey, what's going on? What is this? And like, it's the, the final table of the World Series of Poker. I'm like, all right, cool. Where's the blackjack tables again? So I literally just turned around and I walked away. I didn't watch. I just enjoyed my first trip in Vegas.
Wow.
Mostly on the table games. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Like, can you imagine some sort of alternate universe? As we know, our mutual very good friend Matt Savage was there as well, doing directing and stuff. Like, in an alternate universe, is sort of like, of course you want a front row seat. You get to say you were right there, next to Linda Johnson, card player magazine covering everything. Funny how that worked out. So you had sort of like a home game that you were playing at the time, or just with family around Christmas table, something like that.
Yeah. So after Moneymaker won the World Series, obviously there was that buzz. World Poker Tour was starting up around that time as well. Sure. So. It just turned into like $5 and $10 sit and goes around the table with, family and friends to, hey, let's make a poker table, or let's go to Walmart and buy one of those, old school, fold out poker tables. And that turned from, playing with 8, 9, 10 people to, hey, let's buy a couple of these, and then having, 2 or 3 table sit and goes. And the next thing you knew, we were moving the game around because of all the amount of people that were coming. Yeah. At the time, you could only play, at least in Florida, you'd go out on the Sun Cruise Casino, which was my first job. So you had to go out to international waters. My first live multi was in 2004. I tried to get a seat to the World Series, and I ended up finishing third. I remember I got paid out in all $50 bills, $3,300.
That's bad luck.
I left with a nice little wad of $50 bills, and of course, at the time, I was the local hero celebrity for finishing third in that one.
We'll definitely get into your Sun Cruise days. Those are kind of magical looking back on it, see how far poker has come in Florida. But you mentioned you also had those baseball days. I know, like I said, we've known each other for a while already. And, so often on different social media platforms, I see you posting pictures, back when you were a bat boy, I guess, for the Florida Marlins. And, you had like many years working in various positions for a number of baseball teams. What inspired you to sort of, get into baseball in the first place and then sort of transition out of that more into poker?
So my family was big into baseball. My dad, got me into baseball when I was young, playing t-ball. Kind of family tradition for him was my grandfather would take the family to Wrigley Field every summer, at least once a year. And that was the first time I ever went to a baseball game. I was 7. My grandfather took the family to Wrigley, playing the Pirates, I think, in 1989. So
nice.
Yeah, and it's just kind of ironic that the Cubs had a AA team in Orlando in the Southern League, and it transformed over the years. Went from like the Twins, and then went to the Cubs. But I also played baseball growing up. Played Little League. 10 years old. Clint Hurdle had a big league camp with the Mets. Bob Apodaca, a bunch, random Howard Johnson. It was a really cool baseball camp that I went to in Cocoa. But used to go to minor league games, went to Dodgers spring training when they were in Vero Beach. That was before the Marlins came to Vieira. But just got lucky, got picked out of the stands when I was 10 years old. Hey, you want to be a bat boy for the night? Yeah. And I went and asked my dad. My dad was like, sure. And that was actually 93. So I was 11.
Nice.
Yeah, it was obviously, I don't even know how to put it. It was just such a dream come true for a kid to be able to go onto the field. It's funny nowadays. I get to take my kids on the field to go run around the bases after a Marlins game, but to get on the field back in those days, it just wasn't as accessible as it is today.
Sure, that's interesting. So, was it more of just, I just love this game, and maybe I can't play, major league level, but I have to be around in some way, shape, or form?
I loved it. I mean, I wanted to be that was the dream, was become a major league ball player. And I played through high school, and it just kind of got to the point where it was, all right, do I want to work in baseball? Or do you want to play? My dad kind of had that line, you can't play, what did he say? His line was, you can't put playing baseball on your gas tank, right? So it was just one of those spots where I had to kind of give it up, but I was around it, and like I said, to get on with the Marlins in 97, that was the year they won the World Series. I was a spring training bat boy. I worked for their minor league team in Brevard County, the Manatees. So, and I did all sorts of different jobs. I mean, I was a bat boy, the clubhouse attendant. I was a stadium DJ. I played the music and the sound effects that year.
On the organ?
I pressed play. So, that was my organ playing. I sold tickets, a couple seasons. I sold tickets in the box office. So, I didn't ever imagine I was going to leave baseball, but it just got to that point where I graduated college, and I had an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and be the visiting clubhouse laundry guy. And I just finished college, and I was like, all right, I got this college degree. I was just getting into poker, the bar league that you brought up. And I had an opportunity to kind of expand that bar league and stay in Florida. And so I just had that fork in the road where I decided to stay in poker and, kind of let baseball go.
So tell us about this bar league. And it was sort of like a trivia something. I don't know exactly what the connection, again, here in Israel, we don't really have that sort of bar trivia culture, but I know it exists. Yeah. And it was like sort of one of a franchise you were trying to be a part of or something like that?
So the bar poker league was kind of similar to like a karaoke, just that an entertainment company that brings people to the venue.
Okay.
And what the concept of the bar poker was, it was really popular, and there's still some bar poker that are still, floating around. But the concept is, you come, you play for free, you learn the basics, you have a good time. It's very social, and usually they give away some sort of prize. Now that's always where it's gotten into that gray area. And for me, the more and more I got involved, I wasn't completely comfortable with it, because I knew at some juncture I was giving a prize away, and the legality of that, obviously, ATF or whoever was involved in regulating or overseeing those, because you did hear about certain bar poker leagues that were getting raided.
Wow.
Now, what was going on? There were other activities going on. Like once you would leave, they might use your table and start spreading games, and unbeknownst to the owners. But you were hearing those stories, and the more and more I heard about it, I just wasn't comfortable with it. So I got out and went to the Sun Cruise, and I sold my franchise back to the company.
So the Sun Cruise, it's basically like, for all intents and purposes, a ship that sailed into international waters at the time to, so that, international waters, you can go ahead and play all the poker you want, that sort of a thing. You saw an ad in the newspaper, or you were looking for it, or they found you? How did that, connection happen?
So Cape Canaveral was about a half hour from my home. And, it was well advertised, that it was your opportunity to play, because at that time you can only play like limit poker. It was $2 poker in Florida. I mean, it's gone through a lot of different stages. It used to be quarter poker. They would cap the pot at $10. They used to have sit and goes that I believe it was only 30 or 35 hands, and the sit and go ended. And then, so the evolution of Florida poker has changed over the years. But up to 2007, the only time if you wanted to play true 1-2 no limit, 2-5 no limit, or bigger, is you had to go out in international waters.
Right.
And so the Sun Cruise, left the dock at 7. It took about 45 minutes to get to international waters. We played for about 3.5 hours, and then 11:15 we'd come in and dock at midnight. But it was an awesome opportunity. Knew a lot of the guys from the bar poker that kind of ventured over that way. And Pete Fisher, who actually works at Seminole Casino, Coconut Creek, he was one of the floor managers on the boat. And he's like, hey, we're looking for dealers. Why don't you come on back home and I'll get you an audition. And like I said, with all the things that were going on with the bar poker, as much fun as it was, wanted to get more serious and obviously more regulated.
Sure. Well, what's it like, dealing poker on a ship? I know that type of stuff still does exist these days, in Florida and other places as well. But, obviously poker has grown so much over the last 20 years or so throughout the United States to just, you don't have to do that and go into international waters. You can usually just, drive, a couple hours, a few hours, something like that. At the time, though, it was exceedingly popular, like you said, because of the rules, and people just want to play no limit without having to get on a plane and fly to Vegas or Atlantic City. So what was that ambiance like for, both, I guess you can also know from the players' side, but also sort of from the burgeoning industry side of things to sort of be on the ground floor?
As a dealer, it was difficult depending on how high the seas were. So,
wow,
we were in dealers' chairs have also evolved over the past 20 years. But, if you can imagine, some good chop and, you're sitting here trying to deal and you're swaying back and forth.
You're not talking about a stud 8 chop either. You're talking about the waters.
Oh, it was very difficult at times, depending on the weather. And also the traditional poker table didn't have a well. It had the rake slide and the jackpot slide, but in terms of like your bank was actually underneath your feet.
Oh boy!
And what they call a bird cage. So you actually had to protect. If you can imagine, I can never imagine money disappearing under the table nowadays. But literally, the bird cage was underneath the table, and you were holding onto it with your feet, so it didn't go anywhere. And then if somebody needed a buy, and you go underneath the table, you pull the bird cage up on the table, you'd take the plastic off the top, you'd sell, and you put it right back underneath the table.
It sounds very home gaming in a way.
In a way, yeah. I mean, the regulations, you get on international waters, but it was, the business model was in place. There were never any problems. Nowadays, you'd be worried about somebody maybe trying to go underneath, but on a boat, where are you going to go? You get caught doing that out on the international. But so on a dealing side, very interesting. On a playing side, there was also that opportunity where if a game broke down, they would tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Tony, do you want to go play?"
Okay.
Rather than deal. So I could go from dealing you one hand to playing right beside you the next hand, which was
a problem.
It was interesting as well. I didn't do it that often.
Okay.
But it just was kind of uncomfortable, to put a put a beat on somebody and then go on the other side and expect them to throw you a buck or two, after dealing them a winner. So
I suppose so.
we won't get into the variance piece of it all, but just that dynamic alone was pretty weird.
For sure. Okay, well, that's poker on the high seas with Tony. And then you moved back and became more of a landlubber, and you spent a number of years, dealing and supervising at. I want to make sure I get the pronunciation. Isle Casino Pompano, is that how it's pronounced, or Pompano?
Yeah, Isle Casino Pompano.
Pompano. And that was before, you were there for a number of years before moving on, to where you're now part of the Seminole Hard Rock family. So I guess sort of, again, this is now another step up. You start bar poker, international poker on a ship, and now, okay, we're at a proper regulated, licensed venue, that sort of a thing. What were your experiences like during those few years?
So, when you heard that the laws had changed July 1st, 2017, and I was actually on vacation at the time, a couple of my friends said, "Hey, you got to get down here to Pompano. It's amazing. We're making great money. The action's incredible. The room's full. People are waiting." And I was like, all right. So I came down. Mike Smith, who's now the director of poker for Maryland Live, was the director of poker at Pompano at the time. And I had my audition with him. I was still kind of a newer dealer at the time. And I'll never forget, he told me my audition, he goes, "You got to be faster than that." But they needed dealers. And I think you could tell that, my character and that I could get the job done,
Sure.
And I grew on him and shortly became a dual rate where I, would floor part of the time and deal part of the time. And tournaments were always kind of my forte. So just kind of rolled into running the nighttime tournaments and became a full-time supervisor and spent 8 great years there, with Mike, and before he went up to Maryland and making the transition over to Seminole Hard Rock.
Getting into poker during these years, again, Florida, in a sense, sort of had its own separate timeline. But of course, you're not completely oblivious to the fact of what's going on. And, you were there during the Moneymaker, explosion and, with the World Poker Tour, like you said. What attracted you specifically to the industry side of things rather than, as so many legions did, trying to hack it as a professional player?
I think for poker, it had a lot of similarities to baseball for me when it comes to the competition. Obviously, being on ESPN, the egos, the way poker was being presented. Obviously, WPT's rise on the Travel Channel and how they highlighted that. Was that competition. I'm a very competitive person, so sure. I think that's what really attracted me to it. And also, let's face it, my job's centered around a game. And how many people really truly get to say that? There's a lot of other people out there that are, fighting other good fights and handling a lot of world problems. And when you step back and you look at poker, it has its stresses as any other job, but any decision I was ever making wasn't life deciding for anybody. I'm sorry, it's a premature turn, and that's my toughest decision on some days.
Right.
But no, poker has been an amazing job. It's and what's turning into a career. I looked at yesterday. July 10th was officially 15 years in South Florida for me, and I'm just really, really thankful for all the opportunities I've been given.
That's huge. Well, congratulations, obviously, on that. Trying to think of a way to phrase this one because it's unplanned as far as the questions and stuff. At what point? Because so many people, I'm not saying they end up, in quotes, just staying a dealer, because so many people love and enjoy that. At what point did you sort of say to yourself, you know what, there's a big ladder out there and I want to start climbing and, reaching for those, proverbial brass rings? Because, clearly that's something that you've done. There's a reason, we're interviewing you today, of course. At what point did you sort of say, like you said, this is a career, I'm a lifer, I want to get into this and not just, settle for, remaining in, again, with respect to, lifetime dealers, for remaining in the box?
So my father was a general manager of a Ramada, and I looked up to my dad, and you see some of that had a position of authority, managed people, and I went to college for that as well, for business management. So I've always felt, also as a pitcher in baseball, I've always looked at a pitcher as being the leader of the team. You're the one that holds the ball. There's a lot of decisions that come from you. And, depending on how you pitch, on how you put that, obviously you got to worry about the hitter and where the hitter puts it, but you just have so much control that your team might not have to do anything. If you're just such a strong leader, you strike out almost every player. I've had one of those games where I struck out 16 out of 18 people in Little League.
Nice.
And I guess just those kind of experiences at such a young age, and then looking up to my father, and then getting into poker and seeing like the people like Matt Savage that, have had such an influence on the industry, and other mentors that I've had, from Mike Smith, Bill Mason, and Larry Frank, just amazing mentors that have shown me different aspects of the business, and just continue my thirst to want to lead and have ideas that can be implemented. And I'm really glad that I've gone down this road. And like you said, to all respect to other people that decide to stay at a dealer level,
sure.
Sometimes they go up and they try, management. And for them, it's that stress level that they don't necessarily want to tackle that. And I get that all the time. My wife will tell me at certain days, she'll say, hey, there's days I miss you just being a dealer, where you just went and you dealt, you came home, and you didn't have to worry about, phone calls at 2:00 in the morning that a certain situation happened on the tournament floor,
right? Or,
hey, you need to come back to the room because this happened tonight. So, there's pros and cons to each side, but we need dealers in this business. And, if you're looking to apply, go to workhappy.com for all Seminole Hard Rock poker rooms. So, the dealers they're the front line. And one thing for me is I can relate to the dealers because I've pretty much done every position in a poker room, and they're truly the front line of defense, and the first person somebody sees and sets that tone of that experience. So, dealer, don't and you didn't do it, but that dealer position is so important, and I think
absolutely
it gets lost at times.
Absolutely. And I would say also, at least from what I see as a player and a media person, there's far more direct interaction between dealers and players than usually floor staff and management and players. But you, and among many others who are very unique, you try very, very hard to remain, with your ear to the ground of like what the players are saying. How do you continue to remain engaged in that way with the players, even though there's obviously a couple of rungs of management separation these days?
Yeah, just listening. Whether it be social media, being present on the floor is a big part of it too. They'll come to you. It's not even spots where you have to go to them. They'll seek you out, and as long as you find yourself to be approachable. Don't, I don't know. There's certain floor people that they'll let the power of the suit kind of go to their head, and they'll feel like, I'm exalted or I don't have time for this. And they're few and far between. I think those people end up getting kind of weeded out, or they end up coming back down to reality. But just being accessible is a big part of it. I also like to play the game. And there's so many times that I've been out on a table and I'll go incognito, whether I'm wearing a hat or maybe I'll throw on a hoodie because it's cold. But I'll listen to the conversation, and I will listen. Once again, players love to talk, and whether it's complaints or, hey, I was at this place and they ran a really good tournament. I was like, yeah, I like that tournament, but the structure could have used this.
Oh, interesting.
And I'll be listening to those things, and then maybe I'll adjust my hat or pull down my hoodie at some point, and somebody will look over and like, how long you been sitting there? Or, oh my God, it's you. And it's like, were you listening the whole time? It's like, but those kind of opportunities that when you get on the felt, and poker's a social game. You might be able to talk. Obviously, I don't go to other places and I don't promote, and there's that fine line. You'll get somebody to say, hey, Tony, when's the next Hard Rock event? And you go, yeah, check out the website, but hey, like July 27th.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
And you stop right there because you don't want the same on the other side. You don't want somebody coming to your venue and promoting it. So I try to keep it respectful.
Sure.
But getting back, like what you said, just being accessible, obviously playing and being able to relate to them has been a big key to my success and listening to the players.
Sure. Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into Hard Rock, at least again, from where I said I didn't, look at the figures, but by far, the largest poker operator land-based in Florida, the Seminole Hard Rocks, multiple properties. How many properties? Is like 4, 3, 4?
So the tribe actually has, there's 2 Seminole Hard Rock properties in Tampa and Hollywood.
Right.
And they have a total of 6 throughout the state.
Okay. Right. And your purview now is all of them, obviously, all half dozen. But that's not where you started with them. I think this is 2015 or so that you've been with them, yep. Right? Yep. So how did that opportunity come about? As anyone who's been at a job for a number of years knows that, transitioning to the next one, it's not always necessarily easy. It's hard to say goodbye to folks you loved and had a great experience with, but, clearly a new opportunity came about. So, tell us about that time, the transition.
So it was right around 2011. I was still at the Isle, and, Seminole Hard Rock partnered up with the World Poker Tour and started putting on big events. And like I said, as a tournament junkie, you see some of the things that they were doing, including the 10 million guarantee in 2013, 2014. That was just really appealing, and I wanted to be a part of that. Obviously they had tournament director at the time, and I just kept doing my thing. I just had the birth of my first child in 2013, and I was dual rating, and then the TD position came open, and I put in for it, and I got it. It's just one of those in the right place at the right time. The opportunity came available, and I knew when the Hard Rock was getting aggressive with tournament poker. I saw that there's that transition. The Isle and Hard Rock for a lot of those 8 years they were synonymous in that competition, that friendly competition level. But you saw the needle moving towards Hard Rock, and like I said, landed the job, and here we are 7 years later.
There you go. Well, what did you like the most, and what did you find most challenging, I suppose, about that initial tournament director position with Hard Rock?
That's a great question. I think, now you got me on this one. The most challenging thing, I think, just learning the ins and outs of the company. In the beginning, spend 8 years at one place, you dive into their culture, and then coming over and learning the culture of the tribe. And what it wasn't very challenging per se to learn, but just making that transition from one company to another. Sure. Just seeing the guest service side here, and just how much, I'm not saying that the Isle didn't, but I don't know, the poker here, just the way they focus in on the guest, and then also the challenge of, wow, we're running $1 million events. Right. $1 million guarantees. So
this stuff is getting reported on Poker News, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. And seeing them more and more in the limelight, I guess making a transition to something that was just so much bigger, on such on a global level. I think that was probably the biggest challenge.
Cool. Okay. And what did you like the most at that, when you started filling those shoes, making that role your own?
No, I think it was cool that, hey, we're running events that are televised. We're awarding $1 million first place payouts, and when you stop and think about the amount of places that were doing that at the time, or still doing that outside of the World Series and, a few other stops, there's really not many places that are awarding the amount of prize money that Seminole Hard Rock does on a consistent basis.
I like it. Well, good answer. Solid answer. Last time you and I spoke in interview format was 5 years ago, and obviously one major thing that happened since then, you are now in a higher rung, a different position as the director of poker marketing, moving up from TD, which is pretty amazing. Before we get into that specific position and learning, what's different about that, first of all, amazing title, director of poker. That's what do you do? I'm the director of poker. It doesn't even matter where. That's a cool, a great title. But before we get into that a little bit, when you're the tournament director, when, you started quite genuinely, making a name for yourself in the beyond the South Florida world, the greater poker world, one could say, like you said, you're putting on these tremendous tournaments with WPT, the Seminole Hard Rock Poker Open, all this kind of stuff. Was there any particular event or annual event or something like that that you perhaps had a hand in, or that you look back and were particularly proud of the role that you played in helping to stage it?
So when I got here, Bill Mason, who's the director of poker operations for Seminole Hard Rock Hollywood, they had the foundation was in place.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came here, it was like I think the analogy I've used, it was like a Ferrari. And it was like, hey, here's this brand new Ferrari, take it for a ride, don't wreck it.
Right.
keep it clean. But there was opportunities to come in, and like poker's always evolving, looking at ways, and we talked about mixed games, the amount of mixed games that we were putting in, maybe different buy-in levels, the way that we were layering tournaments and seeing where we can maximize on the space. Because, we're not like the World Series that gets to, lay out 500-600 tables. We had 90, and we have 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we want to make sure that we capitalize on that. So, Bill was very, very good about teaching me, hey, we need to, analyze this, or we need to keep data of this, and just keeping track of the data, I think, was a big part of that as well. To make sure, like I said, we were utilizing the tables that we were spreading. And, but I think the biggest event, getting back to your question about what event, I think having the Tournament of Champions here, the first 2 Tournament of Champions, was a really cool experience with the World Poker Tour.
I think that's where we originally met in 2017.
I think that is where being a part of that was special.
Yeah.
The Seminole Hard Rock Poker Open is the non-branded. We're not affiliated with WPT, so having that non-brand event's also very special every August. That's getting ready to come up with the Big Four being part of that. That was set up as well before I got here, but just continue to be a part of those events. I say it all the time, I really fell into a great spot here where a lot of the trial and error had already been gone through for the first 4 or 5 years, and then it was just, I don't know, just extremely lucky. It's the story of my life. I've been in the right place at the right time in a lot of spots.
Awesome. Well, perhaps that's another thing that carried through when you did get that additional promotion to become director of poker marketing. Again, coolest job title. What does the director of poker marketing for Seminole Hard Rock do?
So a big part of my job is not just focused on Hollywood anymore.
Right.
I oversee there's 3 poker rooms. We talk about there being 6 properties, but there's 3 poker rooms in the state of Florida for the Seminole Tribe of Florida: Hollywood, Tampa, and Coconut Creek. Coconut Creek is about 20 minutes north of Hollywood. Great poker room there that just relocated last year, 29, getting ready to go to 30 tables. Smoke-free space, amazing room there as well. Great cash game business with dailies. So the 3 rooms I help with, everything marketing, and with their marketing teams as well, from, social media, the websites, when big events are going on, making sure there's still a lot of those TD things that kind of come into play where player get a hold of you. Hey, I need a hotel room. That some of that stuff still falls in as well.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the structure for, event number 18? Those one-off, DMs are still involved. Also with, so my position is director of poker marketing for Seminole Hard Rock Support Services. There's a Hard Rock property that was just rebranded in Cincinnati, Ohio. And it was a Jack's, and Hard Rock bought that. So I'm starting to work with the poker manager up there as well about doing future events up there, kind of bringing that Hard Rock culture and the philosophy of poker up there as well. That's kind of in the beginning stages, but I've been speaking with them for last couple of years, but getting a little bit more involved over the last couple months.
Interesting. And I like that you phrased it, because I was looking like, what phrase do I use? But you said, the Hard Rock poker culture. So what is that? And I guess, you even sort of alluded to it earlier when you said the needle was moving, in the Seminole Hard Rock direction. What is it? What is that Seminole Hard Rock culture that sets those poker rooms apart in Hollywood, in Coconut Creek, and in Tampa, apart from the competition in the rest of the state, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think it's just a huge part of it. And harp on all the time, it's just the guest service piece. That when you come to our rooms, that you feel welcome from the moment that you get on the property to the moment you leave. And when you come to the poker room, just, I don't know how to put it. When you walk in, it's just, and I'm not saying just because I work here, because I used to play here as well. And watching the needle move over the years to just enhance guest service. Let's just face it too, the rooms are gorgeous. You know, the fact that they have the resources to put the money into these big, elaborate rooms. So when you walk in, you're playing in a place of comfort and elegance.
Yeah.
So that's part of the culture as well. And just, it's an amazing experience, you know, overall. You know, they talk about rocking experiences. They're really great experiences. And you hear from the players, whether they speak for themselves. They're on social media talking all the time about how our events are can't miss. And every time they go to our events, they're a great time with amazing prize pools.
Awesome. And I think at the time in 2017, the existing room was sort of, prepared to move into the new room that you guys had moved into. And, here you are, you came in and, again, you've been there for a while. You saw the way it had been, the way it is now. What's it like, sort of, again, like as a player, a person has, okay, it's like this, it's like that, but you get to see all the reactions of those players, those locals who come in every day, the people who had been there last year and come back to something completely new. What's it like from your perspective, seeing that, I guess, those reactions from the players of the continued investment in the Seminole in poker in their rooms?
So the brand new poker room unveiled in October of 2019. And that's about the same time that I moved over to corporate. And the room was well-deserved by not only the players, but the staff, that the room in Hollywood had moved around, used to be on the casino floor. And then it went outside to that Seminole Paradise, which was it's like an old sports bar with 2 floors. And obviously it wasn't built to be a poker room. So it had its challenges, but it still was a nice poker room, compared to a lot of the places that you go to. A lot of people didn't know it. They didn't know when you tell them, hey, this was an old sports bar, they would have never known. But for the people that, have been through the years of poker down here,
right,
they finally got that poker room that they dreamed of. And if I tell people all the time, you got to come down and see this room. It's from the moment you walk in, you're hit with Lady Gaga's dress on this, elaborate tile floor, and you come in and cage is right there. Your host stand is right there. The food options, and then 45 tables and just spacious room, and it's really a thing of beauty.
And just a gorgeous guitar hotel as well in Hollywood too. I mean,
and I can't go without talking once again about Coconut Creek in Tampa. The room in Coconut Creek, like I mentioned, beautiful. They were on this casino floor. They just moved upstairs into their own space. And in Tampa, that room in Tampa is not that old either. They just got a brand new room. I want to say it was in 2017, 2018. So less than 5 years old. They were on this the casino floor as well. And they got their own room where it's Tampa. The players love it. They can park. The elevator drops right down into the bottom of the poker room.
Perfect. Wow.
They got their own bar, once again, food, cage, bathroom. They got everything they need there too. And there's 46 tables in Tampa. And
God, I want to get on a plane right now, Tony. You're tempting me.
Hey, they're great rooms. And I tell people, you make a little tour de Florida, hit some great Seminole Hard Rock poker rooms.
Awesome. Well, we are going to switch gears as one needs to do in poker. I want to move over to a particular topic, about the last couple of years of the pandemic. But before we do, you mentioned a few times Matt Savage, just anyone who's listening, if you hadn't heard it yet, he was episode number 51 here on the CardsChat Podcast. Go ahead and listen to that one after this one if you haven't already. I know you've mentioned him as a mentor. I know you worked closely with him in his role as executive tour director at the WPT. I know I'm putting you a little bit on the spot, but what could you point to as a couple of things that you specifically learned from him that you take and incorporate into, your previous and current positions, in Florida?
So I'll say one of the first times I worked the floor with him, he taught me the value of being quiet during coloring up. And it sounds silly, but I was shadowing him during one of the first color ups I ever did, and he just said, "This is the time to be quiet," in so many words, and because of how important it is at that stage of the game to ensure that the color ups are done properly. Also with Matt, and I'm going to give Mary Ann some props to this one.
Mrs. Savage,
yes, Mrs. Savage. That in one of our first dinners, she mentioned Matt will answer any question, big or small. And I think you can't forget about, there's people that are just getting into the game, and it may seem like second nature to us, but to them, what does BB mean, or what does UTG mean? Yeah, you answer those questions, and then you can get into all the controversial, like, we need more chips on the table, right? So listening to the players, there seems to be a theme here, but answering the questions, big or small, I think are the two things. And watching Matt on his platform, using social media, it's free, and just advertising your product, and it's there for the taking, and players are out there listening to it. So I think those are the biggest things that I've learned from Matt over the years, amongst other things.
Excellent. Great answer. Fantastic. And I know Matt, he listens to all the podcasts, including this one. So, that's pretty awesome. And Matt, I hope you enjoyed that little segment. Didn't do it for you, but, as we know, you got to give credit where due. Certainly do. You've had enormous influence, not just on Tony, but of course, on so many others in the industry as well. Pandemic, gotta get into it a little bit. It was so cool. Again, I'm sitting here in Israel. Every country dealt with it in a different way. Every state, every jurisdiction dealt with it in a different way. And, for the beginning of it, no one knew what was going on. Everyone shut down everywhere. And then, but soft, what light through yonder window breaks, Florida goes ahead and begins opening up, which is super interesting and super cool. Again, I'm just happy that, to see that, at the time, wow, okay, someone's, obviously it takes a tremendous courage, and, you got to keep all of the health and guidelines in mind. And, every state, again, has, every company has to go according to state regulations. You had a unique opportunity to be the first, essentially, to bounce back and reopen. So take us sort of through that time, because, again, you had just become the director of poker marketing, pretty much. A few months later, you get this pandemic, you shut down. What's this, give us your front row seat. What was it like experiencing that? And again, pioneering the reopening?
Yeah. So looking back at that time, it was crazy, right, to say the least. And right before, the pandemic hit, I had accepted the position. Jason Heidenthal, who I worked with at the Isle, went to Maryland, and Jason got the job as tournament manager, and was making that transition, for him to come back. And he ran the Lucky Hearts Poker Open in January 2020. And so we got through that great, successful event, just getting going in my position, learning what it's all about. And then you're starting to hear about, the coronavirus and the poker awards. I was actually in Vegas.
Oh, yeah, that was the last event before anything.
Yeah, it was March 7th, if I'm right around there, because I think it was like 10 days before we shut down.
Right.
And I remember being out there, and I remember starting to see people being really cautious. Like, there was a couple of people that didn't want to shake hands. Kind of thrown back about it. But then you thought about, it's like, okay, you respect, people just want to be cautious. So poker awards, happens, come back home. And then, 10 days later, March 17th, all the casinos have closed down.
Yep.
And we were, just like everybody else, sitting at home, just kind of waiting to see what, every day you wake up, see what's new, what's going on. But like I said, there was light at the end of the tunnel. They announced that Tampa opened up first, May 21st.
Wow.
Before May 21st. So about 7 weeks later, they reopened Tampa under the Safe and Sound program. Senior leadership and the tribe, what they did was amazing. The money that was invested into all the PPE and the protocols and procedures to ensure that, guests and team members were and felt safe, upon coming back. And then about 2 weeks later, June 12th is when they reopened the other casinos. So poker reopened at Coconut Creek and Hollywood June 12th. And I think we talked about a little bit that there was just so much uncertainty when we came back. We came back 6-handed, plexiglass, mask, spraying down, seats and railings and chips and how were the players, all the questions that they had,
Right.
like,
There's no precedent you could even look to. You had to sort of figure it out.
Yeah. So they put a great procedure in place for poker, and they came back. I remember the first night, you started to see in Tampa, they come down an escalator and you started watching them one by one by one, and then in groups of two, and then you're like, wow, they're coming back.
Yeah.
And we just didn't know if they were going to come back, but they did. And then we went from 6-handed play to 7-handed play, just very cautious, watching everything, from 7-handed to 8-handed play, and then removing the plexiglass dividers.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So everything just came in stages, but, very thankful we were the first ones to come back. We definitely reaped the rewards of that with the turnouts. And we were the first ones to host major events in Hollywood, January 2021. And we ran 2 events really before anybody was even considering running events. So those turnouts, record setting, in terms of numbers for WPT, the largest WPT of all time, was set. So it was pretty incredible to see. And everybody, for the most part, was pretty understanding. There was waits, some of the longest wait times I've seen here, but that the demand was there.
Oh yeah.
And I think everybody was looking forward to getting out. So luckily we're in a state too that, was that looked to move forward before some other states did.
For sure. And, like it always takes that, whoever that first one is, takes that others could sort of look to and say, okay, well, if they're doing it, I guess, maybe we could sort of do it too. It must have been a very interesting ride. And just again, like you said, you're in the best possible position, if you had a poker table, best position to capitalize from that pent up demand. And we're still seeing today that, some rooms haven't reopened, some, okay, we'll still reopen, there's been mergers and closed, all this sort of thing, but you guys were at the forefront of it. Again, I imagine sort of reached new higher plateaus because anyone who wanted to play, you guys were the only game in town pretty much. So maybe people discovered Florida poker for the first time. I'm sure during those times.
You heard those stories, Robbie. You're absolutely right. There were people that were traveling from, the Midwest, or like, I think talking to a couple guys from Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, hey, our poker room shuttered. We're traveling. We want to get out. They came down and like, wow, this is what we can't wait. We can't wait to go back and tell everybody what this experience was like.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, this is what a big tournament looks like. And to hear those compliments, the word of mouth was big. And to your point, there was a lot of other venues or activities that were shut down. So I think that it brought a lot of new blood to poker, as well. I think there was a lot of people that also stayed at home and they tried out different, different poker apps or what, to learn how to play poker as well.
Mm-hmm.
For learning how to play free poker, and
Sure.
just that's where it all kind of goes back to as well. It's that grassroots. We all have to start somewhere,
Right.
and then we build up that courage to come and play in a casino because it is very intimidating. I remember shaking putting in my first bet in a casino, and so it's we definitely had some challenges, but we got there, and still seeing some amazing numbers. I think the numbers that we saw in 2021
Mm-hmm.
are going to be some record-setting numbers that, I don't know if we'll ever see them again. I'll never say never, but it took a lifetime event to hit some record-breaking numbers.
For sure. And obviously, the proverbial silver lining to, what otherwise was a dark cloud there. So totally understood there. Okay, let's wrap it up just a little bit for you. Before we get into the community questions, we ask our wonderful forum members to bring the questions for you besides the ones that I prepare for you. 2 questions, one that I'm sure you have probably heard before, but it's obviously public knowledge that the Seminole tribe has purchased from MGM the Mirage property. And, there's this talk of, okay, so long volcano, hello guitar. Could you tease anything for us as far as like, what do you know, timelines, and will poker, because of course the Mirage has a storied poker history. Everyone knows from rounders, you got to take those 3 stacks of high society, got to pull up to the
That's
Mirage,
right.
the whole deal. Will poker, to the best of your knowledge, be a part of the new story to unfold at the Seminole property in Las Vegas?
I sure hope so. I really want to see it, and I know about as much as everybody else right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of become the annoying guy that asks the question, "Hey, are we going to have poker? What's going on?" Obviously with that project, it's a monster project that's undergoing through tons of different preparations. We'll see. I read the same things out there, but that's been a very popular question amongst the community, because we've done such an amazing job with these major events down here.
Yeah.
That the players feel like there's a niche, there's room for Seminole Hard Rock Poker or Hard Rock Poker to come onto the Las Vegas Strip. And I really hope that we get out there. Like I said, part of my job at support services is not only like we talked about Cincinnati and hopefully Las Vegas, but other Hard Rock properties around the country or the globe, if they do decide to bring poker on, I hope to help bring that philosophy and help them build their poker product, so if they choose to bring it.
Pretty cool. Well, again, as a fan and as a player, I hope that there is some of that in your very near future, because I'd love to play and give a room like that a try on the Strip. And last question on a personal note, Tony, I've heard lots of stories about your many chickens back at home. What can you tell us about chicken farming?
Oh, I actually just had a Facebook memory came up. I think it was yesterday or the day before, that we gave the chickens away. So when we bought our home in March 2018, little did we know that the house came with 15 chickens.
Right.
And fresh eggs every day. And, I didn't know the slightest thing about chicken farming or anything like that. So I, Googled a lot of questions, but yeah, we had chickens for, oh goodness, up to last year, and we were having issues with raccoons, and the raccoons were coming in, and having 2 young daughters and explaining to them every month or every other month that they all had names naturally.
Yep.
Why Snow White was gone, or why Cookie was gone. We got down to 9, and we took them to a local farm and let them be a little bit more protected.
That is fair. Okay, so you guys think that you only hear about sharks and whales and donkeys and fish. No, we have chickens and raccoons here on the CardsChat Podcast.
That was a running joke for a while. I got plenty of Rocky memes sent at me if I can catch the chicken. And I had to do that a couple times. I'm just hoping there's no videos out there.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're going to now switch to the second half, or second part of the show, new segment where we turn to all of you guys out there, our CardsChat community, to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. We have a dedicated thread on the CardsChat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. Our first questions come from Crystals. Thank you very much, Crystals, for sending these in. I guess it might be hard to pinpoint one here, but Crystals wants to know, Tony, what has been the biggest accomplishment that you and your team have achieved since taking over at Seminole Hard Rock? That is the wording of the question.
Oh, there's so many. The first one that comes to mind, I would say having the largest WPT live field in their 20-year history, 2,482. The reason I can remember that is Ken Griffey Jr. was my favorite ball player, 24, and my birth year, 82. So 24, 82, last April, April 2021, I should say. What an amazing turnout. And that, I think, will be a record that'll stand for quite a long time. Seminole Hard Rock had the previous record of 1795, I want to say, before that.
Knocked it out of the park.
Yikes. Yeah, that was in 2014. I think it was won by Eric Afriat. So yeah, that 2021 event, that was a monster, and I think that has that's a big accomplishment.
Cool. Okay. Crystals has another one. And this I'm also curious as well. And obviously you've been, as I mentioned, our first meeting, our first encounter was in Las Vegas. You are certainly familiar with the poker scene there. Crystals wants to know, if you had to compare the two, how would you describe the differences and similarities between the Las Vegas poker scene and the Florida poker scene?
I think the Florida poker scene, the biggest difference is just how long it's been around. I talk about Florida poker kind of being, it's growing up. It was a infant and a teenager. I think it's kind of getting into its college years now, if you will, where Vegas poker's been around for, you're looking at World Series of Poker, right? They just celebrated, I believe, their 53rd year.
Yeah.
And so there's that age factor. Vegas poker, from what experiences I have from being out there, it just, I don't know how to put it. It's so nostalgic. Like you say, talk about the rounders and the references to that it, flows over to Hollywood. So I think Vegas poker will always be Vegas poker in its own, but there's so much great poker. In my opinion, I'll be a little biased. I think some of the best poker is played in Florida. In terms of the action, the social side of it as well. I've noticed that Florida poker seems to be a little bit chattier from what the players have told me. And also you hear 5 to a flop a lot more in Florida than you do in Las Vegas.
If guys, players out there, if there's a little part you want to replay, don't forget that little nugget there. 5 to a flop. Okay, maybe we should make Florida a nice playing destination there. Last one from Crystals. What is the craziest thing you have witnessed on the poker floor?
Oof. I don't know if I can.
That you're allowed to tell us.
Yeah, that I'm allowed to tell you. Oh, goodness. Ooh, goodness. So many stories. Man.
Would you like a time bank chip?
Yeah, I might need a time bank chip for this one. I can't. Craziest thing I've seen on the poker floor. Like I said, it's a PG show, right? So,
sure.
Yeah. No, I would just say that some of the craziest things I've seen is just the way certain players have handled. I don't want to give any examples. Just the way certain players have handled of certain rulings.
Okay.
And it's part of the business that being on the floor. And some things I don't miss about the operation side of just handling some crazy floor calls,
sure,
and just some activity that's gone out on the floor, and you handle those players accordingly, and you move on. But without getting into too much detail, there's been some crazy floor calls.
So I'll just throw another one of my own in there based on your answer. What is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen happen on the poker floor? Just touched your heart.
There was a player, when you see certain players, and one that comes to mind is Ilyas Murati, who won, I believe it was the 2021 event at Lucky Hearts. He, if you go back to his story, he was an Afghani refugee. His story, you could just see how much the win meant to him and his family. His story is really, really, really good. But that's situations like that, when you can tell that a player where they won money that was life-changing, those are some of the most beautiful moments, that genuine emotion.
Beautiful. We'll move on to our next question asker. That's Acid Burn FX, one of our favorites. And I know Matt, since you're listening, one of Matt's favorites as well. Always makes a good chuckle, some interesting questions from Acid Burn FX. You can answer this, Tony, whether in the poker realm or outside of the poker realm, or both. What is the toughest decision you've ever made?
Toughest decision I've ever made. Wow. Goodness, I feel like I should be laying down for this one. Toughest decision I ever made. I think coming down to South Florida was a tough one. For my poker career, I was working on the boat. I was pretty happy with the way things were going. I saw some writing on the wall.
Yeah.
And that, it took a lot to relocate, down, even though it was a 3-hour drive, but I grew up in Central Florida and that was always home for me. So leaving that all behind, I bring that up because I just thought about it the other day. It was a difficult move to come down. I was also faced, there's been other job opportunities that have come up when I was at the Isle to go with Mike to Maryland. I was supposed to go up there and I chose to stay. And that was another very difficult decision. So I think relocating, especially in light of having a family, and 2 young children, probably some of the toughest decisions, especially when it involves other people.
That's fair. No, thanks for opening up like that. That's very fair. And just, again, I'm curious in the poker realm, if there was a particularly thorny issue that had to come up where you had to make a ruling on it. Is there something that comes to mind as having been particularly difficult?
I think, man, I've been in this marketing role for almost 3 years now. I'm almost forgetting my poker floor experience. Matt kids me all the time. He says I left poker. So
I saw you were paying attention to the latest TDA summit. I know you got your finger on the pulse. Yeah.
I like to hear what's going on. But toughest floor decision I ever had to make. I think there was a situation that came up where a player's hand was unprotected. Just thinking about, and he was facing an all-in bet, and the dealer thought that he had mucked his hand, and that player didn't like the ruling that was made that he wasn't getting the last bet back. It just had an unprotected hand, and that one comes to mind because it was kind of a higher profile player, and when you don't make decisions that go a certain player's way, they can be vocal about it.
Sure.
And there was also another, now I'm opening up on remembering some floor calls. There was another situation in a high roller event where a player raised, not realizing he was facing an all-in bet because it was right around the color up time. And, he raised and he didn't see the all-in, and I held him to the raise. And he's like, Tony, look on my hand, and he's trying to show me his hand. I'm like, my decision isn't based on the strength of your hand.
There you go.
Poker's a visual game. And, there was obviously some people advocating for, his side. And then there's other people saying, hey, you made the right ruling. So, there's, like I said, and that falls back into some of the craziest things that I've probably been involved. It's just really difficult floor calls.
Right. It pays to be well-versed, with all of the requisite knowledge, so you can sort of stick to your guns in that respect. Another couple from Acid Burn FX wants to know, Tony, if you could learn one skill instantly, what would it be and why?
Skill. What skill would I want to learn? I would love to. I'd probably learn how to play the game at a higher level.
Ooh, I like it.
I enjoy playing poker recreationally. Like I talked about, it's an opportunity to get out there and listen, keeping that pulse on what's going on. But there was always that dream that I had to become a Major League Baseball player. And you'll hear me compare poker and baseball to each other quite a bit. That there's different levels of poker, just like there's different levels of baseball from little league to the bigs, and only a certain percentage ever make the big leagues. And I think it's the same when it comes to poker. There's such a small percentage of people that can stand the test of time, both emotionally and financially. So if I could learn one skill, I wish that I could take all those solvers and charts that they talk about and just put it here without using an app.
I love it. That's great. Again, that just kind of begs a follow-up from me. Do you have any, as a player, any as yet unfulfilled poker dreams?
Main event. I want to play the main. I was just telling my wife, just watching this, it's I want to play the main one day. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's a bucket list for a lot of people. Yeah. And that you see certain people, they play it every year in and out. And I think at times, a lot of them realize how special it is, but I think for some, it might be just feel like another tournament, just like it's another day in the office. But that would be a great, that would in a WPT event. I've never played a WPT main. So I have a couple. Events that obviously I can't play at Seminole properties,
of course.
So, and getting time off work, not to mention the financial piece of having
those are some big
small
buy-ins.
children and
Yes.
family. You spend 10,000 on a poker tournament, that could have been brand new floors in the house. So.
Well, if you ask nicely, maybe we'll throw in 1% for you there. You're on your way. We'll see.
All right.
We'll see. Okay, we'll move on to Shells, and then we'll just wrap up the show. Shells wants to know, what is your fondest memory while working in Major League Baseball?
Got a bunch of those. I think the Marlins winning the World Series in '97 was pretty awesome. That was my first year with the team, and never forget. I didn't get to go to the game. Yeah, I know. Watched it from the comfort of home, but I'll never forget. My dad let me stay up after midnight because that game went into extra innings. And for those of you know the story of the chicken runs after midnight, it's a good story. Kind of ironic. I had chickens, and but there's a Craig Counsell scoring the winning run, and Rich Donnelly. Like I said, if you want to hear a good baseball story. The Marlins winning the World Series '97 was pretty awesome. Meeting Michael Jordan when Jordan played baseball. I was a bat boy for the Cubs at the time.
Wow!
I got to meet Michael at the age of 12.
He played second base, was it? Was that
what he was an outfielder.
Outfielder, okay.
Yeah, he was outfield. So yeah, meeting Jordan was pretty awesome. Meeting Ken Griffey Jr. In 2000 when he came to be with the Reds. Meeting McGuire and Sosa, that whole home run chase. Cal Ripken Jr.
That guy. He's my favorite, Cal Ripken.
Yeah, the Iron Man.
So Iron Man.
So I could go on and on about my baseball memories, but obviously the Marlins winning the World Series was pretty awesome.
Cool, love it. Okay, all of these are so good. Look, there are 3 remaining questions from Shells. They're just such great questions. So I want to ask them all. Who is the smartest poker person you have ever met? Shells wants to know.
Met a lot of great minds. Some that come to mind, people that I've enjoyed watching live and find myself, see what they're up to. And he's kind of out of the game right now. Is Dan Coleman. I remember watching Dan Coleman play and watch how methodical, and you just see him. It's almost like he's computing right there at the table. Watching him play live and then watching some of his runs was really impressive to watch. David Peters is another one that comes really close to that. Watching David Peters play, I haven't seen him at Seminole Hard Rock in a while, but touch base with him every now and then. But talking to guys like Brian Altman, who's won 3 WPT titles, all on Seminole properties. I joke around with him all the time that he needs to go dig some dirt up out back and carry it around with him everywhere he goes. Faraz Jaka is another one.
Sure.
With his coaching, Darren Elias, just fell short of number 5. But watching those guys live, very impressive. I mean, I know I'm missing a whole bunch of them, and I'm probably going to hear about it at the next event that I didn't call them out. But just when I first started watching Dan was pretty incredible.
For those who may not remember, because it's almost like a flash in the pan in the way, but he was the $18 million man, won the big one for one drop. Super. I think he's still top 20 all time. Of poker winnings. It's kind of incredible.
Yeah, he won the SHRPO championship here in 2014.
Right.
I think there was a story that he missed the first level. And still came in and won the final table.
Right.
So he was absent from the final table. And then he came here in 2015 and he ended up getting 3rd, I believe it was. He flopped top set of jacks against a flop straight. And I'll remember Phil Hellmuth was doing the emceeing at the time. He's like, that's the only way they bust Dan on coolers. So.
He definitely had his God run at that time. 2 more from Shells. I love this. Okay. That's a bit, again, putting you on the spot though, but what would you like to be remembered for most in the poker community, Tony?
Well, we're getting deep.
I right. Like it. Well, it's towards the end. So
yeah, no, I like
We've worked our way towards this point.
I just like to be known that that I worked hard, and that once again that I was always approachable. That every time that I went and to Seminole Hard Rock or wherever I end up going in this poker world, that Tony made sure that I had a good time. That Tony was somebody I could call on and was reliable, and I think that's the biggest thing I want to be remembered by, is just that my work ethic was strong, and yeah.
I love that. That's a fantastic answer. And obviously, you've got years and many, many decades yet ahead of you.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll necessarily be remembered. I got a lot more time in this business, so I think, in the words of many, the best is yet to come.
There you go. Oh, I love that. It's a very famous phrase. Anyone who follows WPT, it's good stuff. And our final question for you, Tony, those who are listening, perhaps you can't necessarily tell, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Tony's a very smiley guy, loves smiling. And, when I think of you, I always think of you smiling, Tony. Shells wants to know, what is something that always makes you smile?
Kids. Wow. It's my kids always make me smile. They can be they can frustratingly rewarding, is a term I like to use.
Well put, sir.
But when I stop and think about just life in general, if I'm having a tough day, I can't wait to get home to my kids. They always make me smile. Family, my family in general, my family makes me smile. From my very supportive wife and my kids and all my family up north. It's us down here, and I've got a great support system, with my wife and kids, and that makes me smile.
Beautiful. I have a beautiful note on which to end. I want to thank everyone who sent in questions for Tony Burns. And again, one more friendly reminder to all of you out there in the Cards Chat community. We'd love to see you submit your questions for our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. Guys, please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes. Spread the word via your social media channels if you liked the show. Before we let you go, Tony, is there anything else you'd like to share with the Cards Chat audience?
As always, enjoyed talking with you. It's been, like I said, 5 years. Lots happened, but a lot of good poker getting ready to come up. I know the World Series is wrapping up over the next week. Seminole Hard Rock Poker Open starts July 27th in Hollywood. Over $7 million in guarantees. So the Big Four comes back. So hopefully, if you're looking for a poker trip, come on down to Florida and Hollywood. And shortly after that, a couple weeks later, the WPT comes back to Tampa. Starting on August 25th with a Labor Day weekend $3,500 buy-in. So fun late summer, fall of poker coming up at Seminole Hard Rock. WPT comes back to Hollywood in November. So the events keep me busy, and as this company continues to expand, looking forward to more opportunities around the country and globe.
Excellent. And just to get one more little plug for yourself, and if anyone wants to learn more about you, or like you said, opportunities to possibly deal or other sorts of positions there, how can they reach you?
So to apply for positions for the Seminole Hard Rock, it's go to workhappy.com. If you're on social media and you want to kind of follow what's going on, at Hard Rock Holly for Hollywood, at SHRPO for the tournament side for them as well. If you want to follow myself personally, at MD Tony B. A lot of poker, baseball, kids, you'll find on my socials. So constantly promoting work. So, but as always, appreciate being able to come on and talk life, talk poker, talk baseball, and chickens.
I love it. I love it. Tony, thank you again so much. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Cards Chat Podcast. I'm Robbie Straczynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.